Welcome to this episode of the Go Mental YouTube channel, where we break the silence around mental health one conversation at a time. Today I'm joined by Dr Emily Leeming, who is a scientist, a researcher, a dietitian, an author and a TEDx speaker. Amazing! Thank you for joining us today. Now, we always like to start each episode with a fun fact. So can you share with us a fun fact about yourself that we might not know?
I think this one might surprise you. So my first career was actually as a chef on super yachts.
Nice.
So I haven't had this very kind of straight, narrow path of ending up in academic research where I am now. But it was great. I'd literally traveled the world, and it was really hard work. But I think the key thing is that you've really got to understand how to cook for people and what that means to then, makes giving actual advice so much easier, and it really has informed what I do today.
Amazing. So you're a pro chef then?
Yeah, I think if you do it that long, I think that counts.
What's your speciality dish?
I think my favourite thing was just the fact that you are making different things all the time.
Nice.
And I didn't really like doing the same thing. But I'd be making fermented foods, I was making yogurt, I was making jam.
Oh, wow.
Anything from ice cream to fresh bread. And when you were literally doing, salads galore, whole fish on the barbecue.
So can you start by telling us what you do and why you started?
So I'm a researcher at King's College London, and I research the gut microbiome and nutrition. So that's what my background is in, that's what my PhD is in. And before that, I also trained as a dietitian. So that for me was really important, because it's just about helping to support people to make healthy changes, to feel better. And then now I kind of have a bit more of a kind of two-way approach into the work that I do. So I do my research where we're working on building a clinical trial to look at early colorectal cancer and the impact of diet and the gut microbiome in that. And then I have my kind of other work, which is writing, and my book came out last year.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you so much. So my book Genius Gut, and then kind of hopefully kind of hint towards next stages with the next steps from that. And also, writing for the Daily Mail, and I'm a big kind of newsletter person.
Love it.
So that keeps you busy.
I know. Good. I feel like we really need you, because you're like a wealth of knowledge. So that's why I'm really excited to have you today. And I think it's obvious that gut health is having a bit of a moment right now, but I truly believe that it's here to stay, and we're only just at the tip of the iceberg. So why is gut health so important?
I think if we think back to kind of 20 years ago, we didn't really know anything about the gut microbiome, and that's really when we're talking about gut health, we tend to be talking about the gut microbiome. Now, we've got probably, 60, 70,000 papers that have come out in the last 20 years. So there's like absolute crescendo of research really highlighting that the gut microbiome is this forgotten organ that we didn't know about. And it's this new key cornerstone of health that we can kind of tap into, that influences, pretty much nearly every aspect of our body and every system. So I think what's really powerful about this is that unlike our genes, which we can't change, we can change our gut microbiome. And we know that it's not just about our gut microbes helping with our digestion, it's also those molecules that they produce, that they make, that they can cross into our body and help our heart health, help our liver health, and now this really exciting emerging science that I talk about in my book, which is this gut-brain connection. Can
you share with us, for anybody that doesn't know, what the gut-brain connection is?
So we're talking about how your gut and how your brain talk to one another. And this is a two-way street, right? It's not just the fact that we're getting excited about your gut and your gut microbes communicating your brain. It's also the fact that your thoughts and your feelings and emotions can also impact your digestion and your gut microbiome. And I think we all recognize that, right, when we're talking about stress, for example. And I think it's actually something that, although we're only really getting this kind of really exciting early science now, we've talked about it in everyday language for a really long time. We've talked about having gut feelings.
Yes.
We've talked about having butterflies in our stomach, or feeling kind of punched in our gut. So it's something that actually we're very familiar with, and now we're just getting that research to kind of really show kind of what that relationship is on the next deep level.
And in your experience, what are some of the things that actually affect gut health?
So a key thing that you can do to help to support your gut microbiome is actually the food that you eat. So if we think about the fact that your gut microbiome lives in your large lower intestine, this means that the food you eat are going to land on its dining room table, on at least 3 times a day. Now, most of the nutrients in the food you eat get absorbed higher up in your small intestine, so about kind of 90%. But there are certain components of food that your gut microbiome likes to feed on that your body isn't able to fully digest in the small intestine further above. So things like fibre, for example, which are found in lots of different plant foods. It's not just this kind of dull, boring brown bread or kind of digestive. Yes. It's had an unfortunate reputation. I feel very strongly we need to change that. Yeah. But the thing is that only 7% of people in the UK are actually meeting the recommended amount of fibre that we should be eating on a daily basis.
That's shocking.
And this is our gut microbiome's favourite food.
Wow. So we're not even feeding it. We're not even giving it any sort of, head start.
It's just not getting the food that it wants to thrive on. And I think that means that we can make kind of significant inroads for supporting 100%. Our gut health, as well as other parts of our health, by trying to get more fibre in.
So what are the foods they love the most?
So I talk a lot about BGBGs.
Oh, yes.
So this is, because I feel like that, if I say to you, what is a high protein food? Anybody, usually
chicken,
they're kind of click,
fish,
click, click. Yeah.
Turkey, eggs.
It comes to your mind. If I'm saying the same for fibre, usually people kind of get a bit stuck.
That's so true.
So I just think we just need to know what are the highest high fibre foods.
Yes.
Which I call the BGBGs.
Love it.
BGBGS.
It's a bit of a tongue twister.
Think of the 70s band, the Bee Gees.
BGBGS, okay. So, and what is that?
Beans, greens, berries, grains as in whole grains, and seeds as in nuts and seeds.
Simples.
So by getting these onto your kind of regular everyday shopping list, you're kind of automatically getting those heavy high fibre hitters. They're going to help feed your gut microbiome without you necessarily need to overthink it.
Love it. Okay, so beans, that's things like chickpeas,
lentils. You've got lots of different options. You've got kidney beans, black beans.
Okay, perfect. And then we've got the BC.
So greens.
BG.
So that's greens is kind of a broad one.
Kale,
broccoli, avocado. Yeah. It could be anything kind of. Most of the green ones, like cooked spinach as well.
Perfect.
Peas, really good, great sauce.
Peas.
Yeah, and also super cheap.
Yeah.
And then you've got kind of so berries. So
strawberries,
even if it's like dried cranberries.
Nice.
And that's because the berries tend to contain seeds, which kind of boost that fibre amount.
Okay, and then we've got
And then whole grains.
Yeah.
So just making like simple swaps from perhaps like your regular pasta to your whole grain pasta.
Yeah.
Having brown rice, having overnight oats, for example, for the morning, so you can snatch, grab and go. Okay. And then kind of finishing with the kind of nuts and seeds, which tend to actually be the highest in fibre.
Yeah. Cashew nuts are probably the highest, I believe. Are they in fibre?
So in terms of nuts, they're pretty high, but if we think about the seeds, chia seeds, for example, tend to be then like twice as much fibre as even the nuts, which are already pretty high in fibre.
Amazing.
Flaxseed, the same, also super high. And even just having like kind of dried coconut flakes as well, they're a really great way to add in.
I'm getting so hungry now. Now, in your book, Genius Gut, you talk about gut-brain hacks to boost your mood and brain power. Can you share with us the 3 key ones, please?
Yes, absolutely. So I talk about the BGBGs a lot, but there's some other really simple key ones. And I say this to people where I'm like, I really believe that the changes we make need to be simple.
Yeah.
They need to not take much brain power.
Definitely.
You need to be able to just look, eyeball, go, and make it happen. So for me, the biggest one for starting that might seem really obvious, but I think it's a really impactful practical change we can make, and that is just by making half your plate vegetables at lunch and dinner.
Easy.
And I think it's just changing that proportion, or perhaps adding in some extra leftovers from the day before from maybe a tomato salad you had, and just add that to your plate. And that just means you're getting lots of different types of fibres, but you're also getting a range of different types of polyphenols, which also, the colours that give fruits and vegetables, and then the special compounds that kind of feed your gut microbes as well. So that can be like a really nice way to add that in. I also talk a lot about not just the BGBGs, but things like omega-3s in fish, That's also really important for our brain health and can also potentially act as a prebiotic for our gut microbes as well. So early interesting research to show that oily fattiness helps to also support our gut microbiome.
Amazing. What's the sort of science behind that with the oils and the gut microbiome? Is it just another sort of feeding process?
So when we talk about what a prebiotic is a certain substance or a compound that feeds a selective group of microbes or kind of bacteria to have a certain health effect. And generally when we talk about probiotics, we're talking about things like fibre, certain fibre types. But actually there are other types of kind of potential prebiotics, which are the polyphenols and the omega-3s. So kind of adding these little tips and tricks in can be a really great way to not just support your gut, but also support your brain.
I love that. And are there any foods that we should be avoiding for our mental health? Which are the foods that negatively impact our brain?
So I talk a lot in the book about the fact that can we crowd things out? So I'm a big believer in that if we can just add things in that are making a kind of positive effect on our health, we will then naturally end up kind of displacing some of those things that perhaps we want to eat less on. And I think a big reason for that is that I think as humans, we can have like a very black and white thinking when it comes to food. So we think, oh, I can never eat chocolate again. But then actually we look at behavioural science, for example, and we see that, for example, a group of women who were told not to eat any chocolate ended up having more food cravings. And, when they did eat them, they ate twice as much.
It's just that reverse psychology,
and
isn't it?
We all know this in the practical day to day. So for me, it's more about, can you get some more nuts in? Can you get some more fruit in? Like, if you are going to have chocolate, like have that chocolate and pair it with some nuts and seeds.
Clever.
Or a piece of fruit. And like that will mean that, you feel fuller for longer, you feel satisfied, and you're not then like, absolutely scratching around.
Can I go off piece a little bit and ask you what your thoughts are on gluten?
So gluten for most people absolutely fine. There's obviously the group of people who have celiac disease, in which case they want to avoid it. Or if you've got gluten intolerance, then that's something to just be a bit cautious of. But I think it is one of those things that some people think that they have a gluten intolerance, but actually it could be more of a sign that you have sensitivities to something called FODMAPs, which are kind of a group of kind of fermentable compounds, which for some people there are certain types that can just cause some symptoms.
And this is for people that have got SIBO, isn't it? They follow the FODMAP diet and they feel like that improves their symptoms.
So it's more to do with if you have IBS and you take the low FODMAP diet. It's not your kind of first line approach with IBS.
It's quite brutal, isn't it?
It's very restrictive, and I highly recommend that if anyone's going to do it, please do it with a dietitian or check in with your doctor.
100%.
Because it's very, and it's only meant to do it for a certain period of time. And I've definitely seen people in the past when I had my clinic, had been on it for a year, and that's actually can then make things much worse.
Oh no. Okay, so definitely get some professional advice.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on probiotics?
Probiotics is a funny one. So probiotics, the field of probiotics is like the Wild West at the moment. And I think one of the reasons I say that is there was a study done in Washington where they looked at a range of different probiotics on the market, and they found that only 35% actually kind of contained the strains that actually said on the packet that actually shown to have the health effect that they're making claims for. So I think that makes it really difficult for the everyday person on knowing what to get. Generally, if someone is generally well and healthy and just looking to support their gut microbiome, I say you don't need to take probiotics, and just focus that money, if you want to spend that money, on getting high fibre foods in, like, can you get some berries, whether they're fresh or put them in the freezer, like really kind of double down on supporting.
Start with the food first. And it's cheaper.
So that you're going to get much more bang for your buck by doing that. Then we have got this kind of early space around certain types of probiotics being able to have certain health effects. But the thing is, we've got to be really careful about what is the name of that certain bacteria, and are you taking it in the quantities that have been shown to actually have effect in humans in a kind of randomized control trial. And this is where, it means that, the everyday person has to deep dive into the science.
No one got time for that.
No got time for that, exactly. And whether that benefit might not actually be that big. It's a kind of little extra nice to have.
Yeah.
There is 2 really great websites that I do recommend. There's one called the US Probiotic Guide, and now they've got the UK Probiotic Guide. And these show kind of what products are in the market and what strains they contain, what bacteria types.
Amazing. So they've done the research for you.
They've done the bit of research for you.
We'll have to put that in the link below so that people can identify that. It's funny because a lot of the other guests have said the same thing about you, is that probiotics is a bit of a pin drop in the ocean, and it's quite often hit and miss.
Yeah.
You can take one and it doesn't really do anything, but if you change your diet, it's a much more profound effect.
I think there's, we have had studies where, for example, with antibiotics recovery, where actually probiotics have been shown to slow the recovery of the gut microbiome after antibiotics. So I think that doesn't mean that there isn't a place for certain probiotics, but it's just that they're not all the same, and we really need to understand a lot more about the nuances about which types for which purpose.
100%. Now, if somebody's really struggling with their gut health, particularly constipation, what are your thoughts on laxatives? And I'm talking about the harsh ones, but also the sort of more gentle, natural ones that contain like senna. Can you walk us through like that sort of field?
So I think most of the time really want to not be going straight to the laxatives.
Okay.
Like most problems, digestive problems of kind of bloating, constipation, can be solved by making kind of simple dietary changes and lifestyle changes too. So that could be simple things like eating more fibre, having your meals at regular times. If you're getting the urge to go, making sure that you're actually going and you're not ignoring those signals. Also, how you sit on the toilet really helps as well. Does
it really?
It does, because it straightens effectively the end of your rectum to help everything come out in a much easier way. So you want to lift your knees up so they're kind of effectively kind of straight, like we are on the sofa here. So when you're on the
slightly
toilet,
raised.
So you basically, but if you're on the loo, you basically want to have them slightly raised. So if you've got like a kind of stool that you can put under your feet, that can really help.
Go and buy one.
Yeah.
So slightly raised and squatted,
slightly
obviously.
raised, slightly forwards. So, but you're fine. But so you just want, everything to kind of, your knees to be up enough for it to feel that it's all kind of
amazing. Wow, fascinating. You heard it here first. Okay.
Yeah. So
do they actually damage the gut then? These laxatives? Is that what you're? I mean, even the natural ones like senna and
It's more that. So I would say it's that if you are taking certain types of laxative, they're not all the same, and you're not taking them under the guidance of a doctor.
Okay.
Then it's probably worth just kind of, checking in with your GP and just saying, look, this is what I'm doing. And maybe they'll want to pull you back and say, well, let's try these other things first. And then you'll have a guided approach to perhaps you will be one of those people that may end up needing to take laxatives. And some laxatives really aren't a problem long term. Some may, there's the suggestion that they could kind of make your gut kind of slow down in terms of the muscle contractions.
Bit tired and sloppy, is that what you mean?
Sloppy. So, but that, if you're getting that under, the guidance of your doctor, you're in a safe space. In terms of the gut microbiome, we don't actually really know in humans what the effect of laxatives are, but we do know from mice that even taking certain types of laxatives for a short period of time could have kind of long-lasting effects on the gut microbiome.
Ouch.
Now that sounds scary, but
scary.
I do want to caveat that with the fact that my studies don't always translate to human studies. Secondly, and I see this time and time again, my studies tend to use doses that are just so much higher than what you would ever see in humans.
Like brutal.
I mean,
aggressive.
I've definitely seen some pretty massive differences. And so it's slightly kind of, and I think again it goes back to how often you're taking them. What is what's the quantity? And again, I think if you are really struggling with constipation and you need laxatives, it's better for your health to be taking those laxatives if your GP, your doctor is suggesting for you to. So that's the kind of space where I think you need to be thinking
Do we know what's causing that chronic constipation? Are there any sort of causative factors that we know of?
I think there's lots of different types of kind of constipation. So for some people it might just be that their gut is very sluggish and it's just not moving things along. For others it might be a problem with just getting enough water in there for there to be moisture for that poo to kind of move through softly, and it just actually feels very hard and tough. So there can be differences for different people.
Perfect. And for psyllium husks, do you think that they work, or they're decent, right?
They're pretty good.
Yeah.
They're good for constipation and they're good for diarrhea. So they really help to kind of make things move at a.
And I think the chia seeds, the flax seeds, the psyllium husks, I think they're the best natural alternative. In my experience, they are safer options to take, I think, and they're more food-based anyway. So let's talk a little bit about brain fog, because I know so many people struggle with brain fog. Do we know what it is, and how can we combat it?
So I think when we talk about brain fog, we talk about it mostly day to day, like it's not something that's like a clinical problem. It's something that we're feeling very low on energy. We're not feeling the sharpest tool in the box, perhaps, that time of day. Funnily enough, it mostly tends to happen at kind of 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, which means that lunch gets kind of, looked at as if it's being a problem. But actually our circadian rhythm, our body's natural clock, has a natural dip at kind of 2-3 o'clock. So it's very normal for us, just purely based on our body rhythms, to feel that kind of slump. And that kind of brain slump at 2-3 o'clock. So there's a few certain things that you can do. Hydration is so important. I think we don't talk about kind of fluids enough, and just there's a small study that showed that having 2 glasses of water in the morning when they wake up helped to improve not only their mood but also their memory. And just showing that if our brain is made up of kind of 70% water, and it's very, very kind of sensitive to any small changes and how much fluids we're having. So keeping on the hydration.
That's so simple. It's almost like we just overlook the simplicity of. It's all there. We all know it. We just don't follow it. It's all there, and it always has been. And what is the best piece of mental health advice you've ever been given?
I think for me, it's very much making peace with the grey. I think there's no such thing as perfect.
I love that.
And I think we've really got to recognise that when it comes to food and nutrition as well. That food is so much more than just nutrients. We have an emotional relationship with it, but also we sit down and we eat food together, and it's very communal. And so that's something that's kind of really important to remember. And I think when you're trying to make progress for your health and well-being, those small, simple, practical changes that you can keep up, and I very much talk about most days. That's what really matters. It's kind of over weeks, months, years, and not kind of zooming in on individual meals or even an individual day.
That's so refreshing to hear. I love that. Well done. Good one. Where can we get a copy of your book?
So available on Amazon, and also all kind of supporting small independent sellers. It's around.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to get my hands on a copy. Now, we always close each episode with a gift. So this is our gift reveal. Are you ready?
Perfect.
Let's do it. There you go.
It's like Christmas. Has everybody said that?
No.
Oh my goodness. See, we just talked about chocolate.
Funny.
This is so
you
great.
do eat chocolate, don't you?
I was just talking about chocolate.
Good.
Absolutely.
Yay.
Also, surprisingly high source of fibre, dark chocolate.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
About 11 grams per 100 grams.
Amazing.
And polyphenols.
There you go.
You're a woman after my own heart.
Everybody loves a candle.
I talk about, because we talk about that stress connection with the gut brain, and I talk in the book about how we need to be actually really tapping into kind of breathing techniques and really thinking about that two-way relationship. So I think candles,
I love them.
Amazing.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Every time I just light the candle, I just instantly feel calmer.
That's heavenly.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been so insightful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in and watching this episode. If you want more mental health advice, then come and join us at Go Mental, which is the UK's first mental wellbeing festival. It takes place on Saturday the 4th of October, and you can come and learn from all the experts in their field to make your mental wellbeing journey easier. The details are in the box below. Really can't wait to see you there.